Hello, everyone. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about rhetoric and the relationship to your public service announcement assignment. In Professor Brandon Brock's video, he talked about the importance of including ethos, logos, and pathos in your message. So today I'm going to be building on that idea. Also, in addition, I will also talk about the rhetorical situation. Just a little refresher. When we talk about rhetoric, the dictionary definition is the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. Keith and Lemberg in 2008 describes rhetoric as the study of how, when, and why a discourse is persuasive. It causes people to act. And for some, to persuade is to get you to do something. So in the case of your assignment, the public service announcement, what you're trying to do is to get people to act or to change their behavior, to change their attitude. So in this case, rhetoric is something that is needed in your message. Aristotle defined rhetoric as the faculty or skill of discovering the available means of persuasion in a given case. In this sense, it is an analytical skill, so your research must be good. All right. It is an art of figuring out in a situation what are the resources that we can draw upon to make claims that would influence other people through the process of reason. Rhetoric is closely related to argumentation. So arguing is described as reason giving. It includes claims, information where we want others to believe, especially about matters that are not certain, statements that we assert as our belief. For example, changes in gender roles in the past decade has been beneficial or harmful to society. Teaching critical subjects in English puts students at an advantage or disadvantage. So these are examples of claims. Any claims that you do must be supported with facts or reasoning, because reasons are justifications we give for our claims. So it's not enough to just say something and expect your audience to believe it, but you must support whatever you're saying with enough data or evidence. So what about argumentation? Why is it important? Argumentation makes us rational beings, the ability to engage in reason giving. Argumentation is the study of effective reasoning. And who is it effective for? Effective, it implies a concern for the audience. So the message that you're creating is for the audience, it's not just for yourself. We don't offer claims and reasons in a vacuum. The success of an argument depends on the audience. Does the audience accept the reason? In short, argumentation or arguing is the process of justifying claims. It's also possible to have arguments with oneself. This is when you challenge your own views so that we will be forced to justify it. When we engage in argumentation, we are also engaged in persuasion, persuading how others think about an issue. So in short, argumentation or arguing is the process of justifying claims. One of the things that we need to remember when we're making an argument is our choice of language, because language influences how we and or others think. I picked out this quote, because I thought it would be a good example. Says, your words have the power to hurt, to heal, to open minds, open hearts, and change the world. Never forget the responsibility you have over the words you speak. So when you're writing your script, you're writing your story, your storyboard, message for your public service announcement, pay attention to your word choice. Make sure that it's doesn't offend anyone. At the same time, it's effective enough so that the audience will be persuaded to adopt, to believe or to have a change of attitude and perhaps to take action from from watching your from watching your video. Okay. Here's an example of how language influences how we think. It's an article from the Denver Post, and it's about the title is Dying with Dignity versus Doctor-Assisted Suicide. Ballot Initiative Sets Off Language Battle. So the article reads, Coloradans in November will decide whether to allow doctors to write life-ending prescriptions for terminally ill people who have less than 6 months to live and want to die on their own terms. Whether the initiative is called doctor-assisted suicide, dying with dignity, or medical aid in dying, that will depend on who is paying for the campaign ad. The language behind the fight is becoming almost as impassioned as the years-long battle over pro-choice and pro-life that morphed into abortion rights supporters and abortion rights opponents. So as you can see, the words that you use in your campaign kind of sets the tone of how your audience will receive the message, right? Is it going to be seen in a more positive light, negative? Will it trigger emotional appeal? Will it trigger the type of emotion that you're going for? So pay attention to the type of words that you use in your PSA. Opponents of the proposed law, including many for religious reasons and others fear it would target people with disabilities, called it physician-assisted suicide. To communicate and attach ourselves to language is a very natural thing for a human to do, to the point that people will come to blows over physician-assisted suicide or dying with dignity, said Dr. Christina Faust, chair of the Communication Studies Department at the University of Denver. When I think of the word suicide, I think of the words that sound like it: homicide, infanticide. It has such a negative connotation, she said. On the other side, dying with dignity connotes the ability to choose one's own death, which is an affront to somebody who might rest that power in God or a higher power. So again, languages influence how we think. I'm sure you can think of other examples. For example, I wrote here, global warming versus climate change, collateral damage versus civilian death, vertically challenged versus short. Which one sounds more credible? Okay, so think about it. Besides word choice, you must also remember the audience. Who are you talking to? Who are you creating the message for? The audience is another important element in rhetoric. A key move in rhetoric versus just transmitting information is to examine the audience or the public. Who is in it? What situation do they find themselves in? How does timing affect the effectiveness of a message? So you must think about who's going to be watching your PSA? Is it other students? Is it the general public? What kind of language would be appropriate for these audience? Okay, you already know about Aristotle's means of persuasion, or the three components of persuasion according to Aristotle: logos, pathos, and ethos. Logos basically appeals to logic. Pathos appeals to one's emotion, sad, happy, no, whatever. Okay, ethos appeals to the speaker's credibility, his or her goodwill, good sense, good character. So all three are important. So in this video, I'm going to be talking a bit about the rhetorical situation, or rather, when does a rhetoric happen? There are many ways of understanding the rhetorical situation. Aristotle focuses on where the speech happens. Cicero focuses on the intentions. Spitzer focuses on the context, and McGee focuses on events, actors, and processes. These are some of the scholars that talk about rhetoric. Okay, but for this video, I'm just going to talk about one, which is Spitzer. Okay, Spitzer was a professor emeritus at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. His theory is called the rhetorical situation, where he attempts to explain rhetoric in more detail. He sees a rhetorical situation as a combination of three components, which is exigence, audience, and constraints. I'll talk a bit more how this relates to your PSA. Okay, the first one, exigence. Exigence is a situation where there is an immediate need. According to Spitzer, it's a state of imperfection that must be addressed urgently via discourse, via rhetoric. Discourse introduced in the situation would modify the exigence either partially or completely. So basically, simply put, it's the situation must have a clear problem that needs to be fixed. So that's why we talked about the importance of identifying the problem in your PSA. What is the situation? What is the problem that you are trying to solve? So the problem would be called an exigence, according to Spitzer, and it would need rhetoric or some kind of discourse to modify and fix the situation. Modification or change must be positive, of course. Situations in which change via discourse is not possible, for example, death, cannot be considered an exigence. An example of exigence would be the rapid pace of climate change that affects all people regardless of race, class, and religion and region. So this situation requires urgent attention, where discourse may play a role in changing the mindset of individuals and or policymakers. The second component in Spitzer's rhetorical situation is the audience. According to Spitzer, the audience consists of individuals who are not only free to be influenced by discourse, but also those who are capable of playing the role of moderator or change. So you must know who your audience is, not just their demographics, but their psychographics. So demographics are things that you can measure, like their age, their income bracket, their sex, male or female, things that are quantifiable. And psychographics refers to things that you cannot measure, such as their values, their belief systems, ethics, that kind of thing. So that's why it's important for you to do your research before you can create a message that is effective. Okay, because trying to say address a general audience, but you use a language that is too specialized or too complicated, your objective might not be achieved, right? So really think about who you are addressing. The third component of a rhetorical situation is known as constraints, which refers to persons, events, objects, and relations which are part of the situation because they have the power to constrain decision and action needed to modify the exigence. In other words, what are the things that is challenging, what that is stopping the message from being understood, that is stopping the message from being successful? It could come from the rhetor, the speaker, or it could come from the audience. So what I mean by coming from the speaker is a message that is poorly executed. For example, say the person who created the PSA doesn't know much about the audience, right? Maybe he or she is from a very, very privileged background, and he or she is trying to address an audience that is from a lower income bracket. So what the message that he's creating might not resonate with who the message is for. Let me put it another way. The orator or the speaker or the message own personal characteristic and style may serve as a constraint. Okay. For example, a speaker who comes from a position of privilege and finds it a challenge to relate to an audience made up from a marginalized population. Or another example would be, say you're trying to influence someone in an older generation bracket, right? But you're using language that is a bit too hip hop-ish, or jargon or language that is foreign to them. Then your message might not be as effective. Okay. Another constraint could be your design. Maybe the words that you use are very good, okay, very effective, very focused, and then your script is well thought out. Your research is done properly, but then your design, like the editing, might not be as good. So that can also be a reason why your PSA is less persuasive. So these are some of the things that you need to remember. At the same time, the constraints can also come from the audience, right? So again, Bitzer claimation to qualify as a rhetorical act, 3 conditions need to exist: the exigence, the audience, and the constraints. Example, the exigence is a problem or occasion for change that causes someone to speak. Example, COVID, right? The COVID situation that we are all experiencing right now. Audience, who are we addressing? And number 3, the constraints, barriers to problem solving. For example, the lack of awareness among the audience. In summary, the rhetorical situation includes considerations of who the speakers are, what are they saying, who the audience is, what the context is, why speech is happening, and what goals and interests all sides bring to the table. The rhetorical situation is the background for any given speech that determines whether it is fitting and persuasive or inappropriate and unsuccessful. Okay, anyway, so I hope that short video was useful for you to see your public service announcement assignment from a rhetorical view, rhetorical perspective. And if you need more information, if you're still not clear about it, please make an appointment. You can make an appointment to discuss further via Zoom or Skype. You have my email address, so all the best and good luck for your assignment. Okay, bye.